Howdy doody, my name is Cameron, better known as Venus Theory, and it's October, and in the words of Ali and AJ from their 2006 certified classic Acoustic Hearts of Winter, it's the greatest time of year, not only because I get to start making chili again, but because we get a new Falcon update. In this video, I'm excited to show you around what's new in Falcon 2026, and normally in this part of the video I would give a brief summary of all things Falcon, but all you really need to know is that Falcon rules, and I'm very excited for this update, so let's just get right into it. The first thing you might notice here is that the UI of Falcon got a little bit of a refresh with some updated fonts and wording and spacing and other adjustments like that to make the workflow overall a little easier on the eyes, which is great because we have a whole lot to explore. First off, we've got a couple new oscillator types. Let's start off here with the phase shaper. So phase shaper is a phase distortion oscillator similar to a lot of the sounds you'd hear in classic 80s phase distortion synthesizers. And you can see along the bottom here, we have fully parametric control of the most common shaping tools from synths of that era, making it sort of a hybrid all-in-one approach to all things phase distortion synthesis. If we take a listen to the starting sound here, we start with a simple sine wave, and we can reshape the wave in a variety of different ways to completely change the overall character and timbre, as well as this fuzz control, which brings some incredibly nice crunchy grit to the whole thing. We also have a couple of presets here, starting with a saw wave, some bent waveforms, and we can even get into more harmonic style oscillator tones, which give you some nice, something between an organ or something like that and a synthesizer. One of the coolest things about this new oscillator type is that all of these different parameters can be modulated or controlled with things like MPE. So I have an MPE controller here, and I've put together two different phase shapers and the MPE script inside of Falcon to turn this into a really reactive, organic oscillator sound. So I'm excited to experiment with that more. Next up here, we have the new SupraSaw oscillator. This is, as you can probably guess, a supersaw oscillator. Big, lush, super rich sounds right away. With this oscillator, we can have up to 24 different saw waves generated. And we can do things like laser style saws if we decrease the phase spread here, or more lush, stereo, big, organic, analog sounding saws with the stereo spread and complete phase randomization. Pretty gorgeous sound, I think. We have a number of controls in here, from the blend between the original voices and the duplicated voices, the detuning, the curve, the modulation, and even some altered modes to retune the individual voices. So right now it's just a standard what you see is what you get, but we can move over to something like the fifth and center -2 octaves, and just make some absolutely epic stacks. This oscillator is great on its own, but of course with Falcon being Falcon, you're free to duplicate this and change some settings a few times to create a super duper ultra mega saw and get some absolutely incredible sounds. I've just run this into the ladder filter here. I mean, man, that with some reverb on it, cool, done, sold. There's a lot you can do with the new SupraSaw oscillator. Here I've blended it with an analog sub and some noise, then fed that into a chorus and distortion to give you that classic Mick Gordon crunchy guitar synth doubling effect. So pretty cool, pretty crunchy. Excited to put that on with some big heavy guitar. Next up here we have the 808 bass drum, which is kind of a 2-for-1 oscillator. So we have kick mode, classic punchy kicks. We have a selectable transient, the overall tone, and the decay. Then we have bass mode, which also has the selectable transient and tone, and this gives you those classic super long punchy subs we all know and love. This is actually a circuit modeled recreation of the original unit, and one thing I've been doing with it is stacking one in kick mode and one in bass mode, and then piping those into a bit of distortion, and I don't think it gets much better than that. Another fun trick for those really crunchy, fuzzy, modern subs you can do is use this same idea, but then add on a noise oscillator here. Then we'll unlink these oscillators and just turn down the noise a little bit. Maybe we'll set it to pink noise, and now we get a really crunchy, thick, just ultra grimy sub that would be perfect for bouncing out and resampling or processing further in Falcon with all the other effects. The last new oscillator is a new sample type oscillator, and this one is called grains. So it's much like the other granular oscillators inside of Falcon with the standard granular controls, but there's a couple new twists here with the modes. The classic mode, as you might expect, is just a pretty straightforward granular sounding oscillator. We could increase the grain size, maybe alter the position, some jittering, a little bit of pitch, some reversing, increase the skip chance of the grains, maybe play with the duration and use the stereo spread mode, and now we get this. So pretty classic granular goodness. The next mode is called cloud, and this is a much denser granular oscillator type. So if we start to play with things like the overall density, maybe we decrease the size, move the position back, and play with the speed, you can get these incredibly rich, granular pad-type textures. And you can see it scrubs through the sample as we go. Now the last one here is called pitch, and this one's a little more interesting. If I play right now, we had a tonal plucked sound. You can hear as I play different notes, it's actually producing the same pitch, and that's because this oscillator is designed for something a little bit different. So here I've loaded in a new sample, and if we just give it a play, sort of a crunchy Foley type effect, and if we go over to pitch mode here and play this again, you'll hear it's generating grains to produce a specific pitch. So meaning I could play lower, higher, and start playing with things like the position, the formant, the overall density, and then maybe vary things like the position. And we get some really interesting variations where we get a sort of blend of texture and tone. So I think this is a really exciting new mode in the granular engine of Falcon, and I'm gonna be curious to see what I can make with it. I think this combined with some MPE and plenty of reverb, as always, would be a pretty good time. Falcon 2026 also brings in a few new effects. First up, let's take a look at Bloom here, and I'm gonna add this onto our Phase Shaper MPE patch. So this is based on UVI's standalone Bloom reverb, and we have a variety of different presets we can access here. Bloom sounds absolutely gorgeous, and if you want to learn more about what makes it special, I actually produced a separate walkthrough video for that, but let's just feed this sound into here and see what we get. Lovely, lovely stuff. Next up, we have a new distortion type here. This is the tube amp. I'm just gonna throw this on top of a sine wave, so we've got pretty standard stuff. And if I feed that into the tube amp, right away, tons of grit, tons of character. Going back to my 808 patch here, which had the tube drive on top of it, I think this thing is better heard than described. So right now at a very low drive setting, pretty standard, a little bit of color. As we increase a little bit, start to get a little bit more gritty, and as we go up, starts to get pretty mean. And if we increase the input voltage, maybe just crank it up all the way and do a little bit of tone shaping, just kind of a smiley face scooped mid thing. Just tons of color and grit and character, and I really hope to see this maybe put into some kind of standalone effect from UVI in the future, because I really, really like the way this thing sounds. Last up, we have a new filter type here called vowels, with an X and Y control to morph between a variety of vowel shapes. If you're not familiar with the vowel filter, it's basically a special type of resonant filter that mimics the characteristics of a human vocal tract. So if I go ah, ee, ah, ooh, something like that, that's basically what a vowel filter does. And if it still doesn't make sense, it sounds like this. These are a lot of fun to play around with, especially in conjunction with the formant control. There's also different modes like low pass and high pass. And especially moving around the formant control, if I maybe add some modulation from the mod wheel or something like that, we can get those classic kind of spacey PlayStation 2 era pads that have fallen pretty out of vogue, but I think are still very, very cool. With everything else in Falcon combined with this, I'm sure a lot of you are going to go out and make something really neat with it. We also have a couple new modulators in this version of Falcon, and the first one is a little bit difficult to describe here. It's called flow noise. So here I've set up a patch that's just a basic analog subtractive sort of thing. A little bit of movement to the filter from the mod wheel there, and if I enable flow noise, what it does is very similar to a sample and glide LFO, just kind of smooth modulation, but it's a little more organic sounding, and it's really nice to mimic that kind of circuit level instability of an analog system. It's much more organic in character. That's really the best I can describe it. So here I've tied it to the pitch and the cutoff of the filter in very, very subtle amounts, and you'll hear it kind of blooms in over time. So let's just hold down a chord. So it just makes things feel a lot like an old sort of in need of service analog synth or something. And if I increase the depth and rate, it becomes much, much more chaotic. So getting up into some audio rate modulation with a bit more depth or even a more subtle amount. Just a fun way to add that bit of drift and mojo to a patch. The next one is the voice modulator here. So this is a step sequence modulator that's assigned to voices with up to 16. I've just set it to 8 for this example. And as I play like an arpeggiated chord or something here, you'll hear that each voice has a value change. So this can be assigned to anything inside of a patch. In this case, I've assigned it to the pitch and the cutoff just to mimic a synth that maybe, you know, has been around too long and sitting in the attic, so it just, you know, the filter drifts a bit and all that. You'll get the idea. So it's pretty extreme here just for the sake of an example, but I'm sure you can imagine that as you assign this to a bunch of different things in very subtle amounts, it really just brings a patch to life. Last but not least, we have a new script here called Chord Generator, and this one's actually a lot of fun because it's way more than just an automatic chord generator thing. So here we have 7 different slots. We can enter our own chords or add some from a preset here, and these play C, D, E, F, G, A, and B on your keyboard. So as I play C, we get the first chord. If I play a D, we get the second chord, and so on. Now, there's a couple things that make this pretty fun. One of the first things is the curve here. So as I increase this, you'll see it spreads out the timing of the notes. So you can get these nice kind of raking effects, or invert it to get sort of a descending arpeggiated movement. And with tighter values, you can get something kind of akin to strumming a guitar. The really fun thing here is the repeater, which if I enable this, it's sort of a per tone arpeggiator within the structure of a chord. So root note, second note, third note, so on, or an inversion if you've entered a chord like that. So if I play my first chord here, you'll see it's adding in arpeggiator to each of the notes that make up a chord, and this goes for all of the chords in the set. It's a really fun way to play with arpeggiation, and if you combine things like the timing, the curve, the velocity offset, and all that, you can get some really, really cool results. So here in this patch, just to demonstrate, I've got my filter and stuff and some decay of envelopes tied to the mod wheel, and we can just hold out some notes and cycle through a chord progression. And I think that's a really, really cool way to play arpeggiated sequences from chords, and it makes it incredibly easy to do from this new script. And as always, there are new presets with this update. There are 100 new presets included in Falcon 2026, all handcrafted with love and affection from the UVI team. Falcon 2026 adds some really cool new stuff to what is already one of the most comprehensive and capable hybrid workstation systems out there. And it's a free update for all existing Falcon owners, so if you haven't already, you can get the update right now inside of UVI's portal. If you don't have Falcon and you want to check it out, you can pick it up for yourself today as a standalone product or as part of UVI's Sonic Pass or Sonic Bundles, and if you want to learn more about all things Falcon, you can find the links down in the description below. That's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Thank you to the UVI team for having me on the channel as always. And of course, once again, I hope this inspires you to get out there and make something awesome.